we know structurally that you cannot use the action to relive it.
Yeah, okay, because that's maybe what I've been doing. Well, I'll tell you where I've been with this. So, like, there's clues in the way it's written. You know, she had there was an accident, she fell, she took a bad fall. And then, so it's part like what I've been playing around with is it's hard to get through, and not necessarily reliving it, but not being able to go there.
But you can't.
Right.
You can't. Look, you have to look at something and say, if I go there in the second chunk,
yeah,
I'm doomed. I mean, we got to know this stuff. Nobody, the end of Beethoven's Ninth Symphony is suddenly bum, 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 but you don't start with that.
Right.
Okay. So you have to know that you have to have a place to go. So it tells you something. So now I do have to look back, and maybe I have to understand the logic of it. And the logic that I have to understand of it is, how do we talk about really painful things that happened in our lives? We never relive them.
But I think what hangs me up is, okay, so she asked me, I said, it was an accident, she took a very bad fall, but why, after she took a very bad fall, do I tell her where she was? Why do I give her this detail?
Well, there's something that happens that you have to understand that's a phenomenon, and the phenomenon is the guy on the plane next to me from New Zealand to Los Angeles telling me about his wife cheating on him with his best friend. They're things that we do not talk about except to strangers. That's just the nature of being a human being. And we are fascinated with detail. And also, look, here's the thing. One of the things that's important about a play is the concept of, why is today different than any other day? Today is different than any other day is because a total stranger in the middle of a snowstorm knocked on your door.
And she can destroy my entire world I built for myself.
Well, whatever. Yeah. But the fact of the matter, you can't think she can destroy my world. We don't think that way. You know more than your character knows. He doesn't know that.
Right.
You may know it. But all he knows is there's a stranger sitting in front of him. And it's taken him, practically the whole day to get to this. And he does. It sort of starts with that. I don't want you to think I'm crazy, but you act like the shoes are nothing, but they're not nothing. It's weird. It's like there's something that happens in a play that does not happen in real life. Plays are not real life. Plays are selected. And what is selected is that he is talking about something that he has been sitting on for, how long has he been there?
Years, probably.
Yeah. Something he has been sitting on for years. And that's what the play is about. That's what he's doing. We willingly believe that. We willingly believe that there is a character that will talk to a total stranger and tell them the deepest, dark secrets of their life. Willingly we believe that. And it wouldn't be a play if she said to him what happened to her. And he said, I don't want to talk about it. Do you see what I mean?
Right.
Then I have no play. So what has happened is suddenly the shoes. Suddenly the shoes. I mean, as you know, my best friend Tim died of AIDS in the 90s, and I'm in Paris, and I'm looking at this fashion, and I look at it, I go, oh my God, Tim would go insane looking at how fabulous the fashion is here, because he just loved that stuff. And even when I talk about Tim's death, it's funny.
Right.
I said, you know, John Arnone and I were with our boyfriends seeing Carol Channing in Hello, Dolly. And I said, as far as I know, Tim sat there and said, good God, if John and Milton are seeing Carol Channing in Hello, Dolly, it's time for me to die.
Right.
But you know what I mean? Walker pulled up something for me yesterday. Joan Rivers talking about her comedy stand-up about her husband committing suicide. But you see what I mean? It's like that's the action she's playing. And she was talking about her 15-year-old daughter picked up the phone, and some asshole from the police department said to her, is your mother home? No. And she said, well, would you tell your mother that her husband committed suicide? Okay. And so then she's talking about how she lost her daughter practically. Her daughter didn't talk for weeks. And she said they went to an expensive dinner, and she said, and I looked at the menu, and it was a really expensive menu, and I said to my daughter, if your father were alive, he'd kill himself all over again. And she said, my daughter laughed, and I got her back. But you see what I mean? Terrible moments in our lives we talk about in a way that we can handle it. Walker found out at the age of 40. How old are you now?
45. So I found out when I was 40.
Hey, 40. So 5 years ago, Walker suddenly found out that his father was not really his father. That he was...
I remember that, yeah.
Yes, okay. So 5 years ago, he called, I was one of 3 friends, I think, or 4 friends, or who knows. With Walker, it could have been 80 people. He called having a nervous breakdown. I, of course, decided to film it, but that just tells you something about me. And so we went through this whole sort of thing, and over the years, it's now become the basis of a one-man show, much of which will be funny. Much of it will be funny because at the moment when of course, Walker taped it, so he had a tape recorder things, and so he played it for me, and so his father said that I'm not your biological father, and Walker went, holy fuck! And then when we were going off to film it, he said, I mean, who am I? Who the fuck am I? And he's falling apart. Now, years later, you see, when he talks about it, it's about to be a one-man show.
Right.
You have to understand there is not one way we relive the past, and there is not one way we relive painful moments. And we have a resistance to going there. That's just very human. We don't want to go there. We don't actively, unless you study with Lee Strasberg, we don't actively seek out our pain, or Ivana Chubbuck. We don't actively seek out our pain. It's not a place we actively go. Because that's not human. For acting teachers to have that as part of their curriculum to me is insane, because it's like teaching somebody not to be a human. It's teaching somebody to be indulgent.
Indulgent, yes.
Yes, and I mean, it's like Bobby Lewis said, if crying made an actor, my aunt in Brooklyn's the greatest actress I've ever known. And that's it. That's really it. It's not, you don't go to an antiseptic, analytical place. In other words, you know, there's another place that you go where you say, the horrible thing about it is, I have three different possibilities of how things could have been different. They can't be, but how they could have been. If I hadn't walked into the room at that moment. Fuck. And of course, there's nothing I can do about it. But that is something that I do think about.
But why do the possibilities come up? Is that just out of beating myself up?
No. Mm-mm. It's like, I think it's like, well, since you asked, as long as I'm talking about this, let me go on. Let me do my one-man show. I mean, look, the poor guy has already moved into oblivion in order not to have to deal with anything. I've been listening to a lot of bad, really, really bad, not since I got in Paris, which tells you something about Paris, but books on tape about relationships. And there is a running plot. And the running plot is, I refused to get involved with anyone because I was so hurt.
Oh, right, yeah.
Okay, so that's all of them. As soon as that happens, you know they're going to get involved. It's like every single romantic comedy in history. We know they're going to get together, but we're going to watch for the next 90 minutes to figure out how. And if it's really, really talentedly written, then it's going to be fun how. So, anyway, they're conventions that we just have to accept.